At the University of Regina, the Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Digital Resource Hub showcases impactful EDI initiatives across the campus.
It's a centralized, accessible resource for our community and post-secondary institutions nationally.
Join us to hear the stories behind the initiatives shaping our campus.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation to participate in this project. My name is Aziz Douaï. I'm the Dean of the Faculty of Graduate Studies and Research at the University of Regina. And today, of course, I'm joined by my colleague, Dr. Christine Massing, who is the Associate Dean, Academic and Student Experience. I think so it's not about discipline. The mandate of our faculty is to oversee all graduate programs and the entire graduate student experience at the university. And when it comes to EDI, what we do focus on is ensuring that our EDI or our policies meet or create an inclusive space for graduate students who are here, but also even before they come here in terms of the application process and so on and so forth. And when we talk about EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusion, there are other aspects to it beyond just policies. It's how to ensure that we support, for example, international students. How do we support indigenous students? And how do we create the conditions for them to succeed? And I think in the course of the conversations, we're going to talk about some initiatives in terms of funding and in terms of training and in terms of the overall student experience. So that's what we do in a nutshell, and that's a summary of our work within the Faculty of Grad Studies. Having said that, there are specific initiatives that Dr. Massing here has been involved in. So I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, well, we offer a lot of events for all of our students. We want to build community among our students, and especially online students, because we know that graduate school can be very lonely. And from an EDI perspective, we want international students to feel welcome, and we want them to provide the appropriate supports to bridge them into this new context that they're living in. And so we really do try to respond to the needs of our students and what they bring forward to us, and feel that will help them be successful.
Absolutely. So in a nutshell, it's policies, but also supports, and supports can take various forms. And we'll be happy to share some of those supports that we have.
So we have a course called Thrive Plus, or GRST 801. Every graduate student takes this course in the first semester of their program. And so we have a very, as I said, we want to bridge students into graduate studies, help them be successful. So there is a module on academic integrity, and of course, norms around academic integrity vary according to the culture or the university, and so we want our students to understand what the norm is and what the expectations are in our university. We have a specific EDI module. We worked with Dr. Sujatha Ross to, she did a video overview of this module, and just to introduce key EDI terms and to help students understand concepts like discrimination and racism and harassment and how that might look. and also just to point them to various resources that we have here at the university. And then we have a course within a course, the 4 Seasons of Reconciliation, which was developed by First Nations University, and it introduces them to colonization more broadly, and I think students can relate to it because they do talk about colonization in other countries as well, and then more specific to the Canadian context, settler colonialism and residential schools, and also it also celebrates the diverse strengths and assets that Indigenous people have given to Canadians. So I don't know if that's, yeah.
No, that's...
Yeah.
You have captured most of the resources that we have, the training. But in terms of the training, we also contract and work with the Canadian Association for Graduate Studies, and to ensure that our graduate students can participate in their anti-racism training series. So we have had, for the past 4 years, we paid for students to take these courses on an annual basis, and there has been tremendous uptake. So that's kind of one training that we have. I think also not specifically around EDI, but we also want to ensure that our training and support for faculty supervisors also touches on EDI. And recently we are developing and working with colleagues to develop community of practice around graduate supervision, in which we bring workshops, speakers, and these speakers hopefully will touch on how to incorporate EDI lens when it comes to graduate student supervision. So those are some of the training pieces. We also have worked with Sujatha, Dr. Ross, not only in this capacity of providing a video, but also in working with an external organization to provide training and certification to graduate students. So we sponsor students to take that training. So those are kind of some of the initiatives that we have undertaken so far.
And just one more comment, we also want to compliment the excellent work that UR International does to support new students who are new to Canada. And so we look for things that we can assist our students with. And the latest one, for example, was a financial literacy series, and including a workshop, financial literacy for newcomers to Canada, just to help support our students in their transition to our institution and our city.
Yeah, so that's kind of when it comes to students and faculty. For the team within FJSR, in the past few years, not in the last 2 years though, we invited the university's advisor on EDI and anti-oppression to develop workshops and for the team within FJSR. So, and that we haven't done that recently, but that has provided some understanding of how we can adopt an EDI lens in the admissions process or in the scholarship application process, and so on and so forth.
And we'll often have conversations as a team, for example, about an email, just a standard email that, for example, the registration team or the admissions team might be using. And is there is there a better way of wording this, and how will our students receive this email?
Yeah.
So I think the staff as well are quite conscious. They're very, very close to the students that they take care of, and they're very conscious of, how can we make this better and how can we improve?
Yeah. I think maybe not around training, but really the goal about EDI when it comes to FGSR is creating, our aim is to create an inclusive and welcoming space for students, faculty, and staff. And we have been trying to make resources available. We have been trying to support students and student groups, including a BIPOC student, including Indigenous students. I think and I started by talking about the resources. We have provided funding that is geared towards specific BIPOC groups. So those are kind of some of the initiatives that we have undertaken. However, the work of EDI is not a one and done affair. It's an ongoing project, an ongoing work in progress type of thing. So we're always looking for ways to improve what we do. And we can talk about how we looked at our accommodation policies around students with disabilities, right? There is no clear policy on how to work with students with disabilities during the dissertation stage. So we worked with accessibility services and we looked at our policies. How can we accommodate these students? Particularly when it comes to international students. For domestic students, they have access to some financial supports from the provincial government, but when it comes to international students, they can't access those supports. So we worked in this specific case with the supervisor, with the Faculty of Science, and of course our faculty to ensure that we provide financial supports that would help that student graduate in a timely fashion. And I'm happy to see, I was very happy to see him actually yesterday cross the stage. So that's the type of work that we do. And it was a good occasion for us to review our accommodations policies.
We've had students with complex medical needs, and they say, well, I don't necessarily need a whole semester off, and it impacts their program if they have to take more time than they need. And so we changed our policy to accommodate shorter leaves of absence up to a year. So those kinds of things, but our students are great in bringing things to us.
Well, we don't have a community of practice around EDI, but what we do within the Faculty of Grad Studies, as I said before, support students, BIPOC students, and BIPOC faculty who seek our support. So we have this BIPOC group. It's formal name, I think, the Graduate Student Diversity Group. So we provide them with funding support to help support other graduate students, BIPOC students. And recently they had, was it a potluck that you attended?
Yeah, no,
You were there? Okay. You were in there.
Yeah,
So
and a
on
bowling event. And,
a bowling
yeah.
event. Sometimes they have these networking events. They call it wine and cake event, in which actually they bring visible faculty members, professionals who are visible minority, kind of from a visible minority background, and they work with these graduate students who may identify as BIPOC. So creating that awareness and creating that support among graduate students that these supports are available is important for us. So while we don't have a community of practice formally, we do have a larger community among students that advance the work of EDI.
And with the BIPOC student group, they actually share their information at our initial orientation, just to bring students in, and we share it in our Grad Digest every month, just so that students are always aware and they know where they can go if they want to find a community. Yeah.
You mentioned specifically the leave of absence. So the leave of absence policy, up to 4 weeks ago, it did not allow international students to take a longer leave of absence, a 1-year leave of absence. So what we did to accommodate international students, but also to accommodate students with specific needs, we allowed the leave of absence to be broken into short-term kind of leaves of absence up to 1 year. So as an international student, for example, if you need to take care of yourself for 1 month or 2 months or 3 months, now we have the policy that would allow. So that's kind of a positive change. Another one, maybe not around just BIPOC, but it's also about EDI. We had a PhD student who just started her program here with us in engineering last year. And she was pregnant. She wanted to go on parental leave. So she asked us, now, when in Canada, when you go on parental leave, if you're working, you still get part of your salary. But as a graduate student, she was getting just support from her supervisor, and that support was contingent upon the research work that she is doing. So she asked us, are there any financial supports for graduate students who are going on parental leave? And we said, no, we don't have an award to support graduate students who are on parental leave. So we scrambled, we put some money together to support her, and then we established an award for graduate students going on parental leave. So that's another concrete kind of support for graduate students.
I would say when I came into this position 6 months ago, there were a lot of established events and that we offered for students, and our grad engagement coordinator, Wendy Forsberg, organizes all kinds of experiences and academic and more social for our students. And the Coffee with the Dean has been really good because the dean and the associate deans are there, and it's become a very safe space. There's usually about 15 to 20 students where students can raise concerns that they have. And I feel that they're quite comfortable doing so. And sometimes they'll ask to speak to one of us after one of our events privately. So we're trying to create a more inclusive culture, and hopefully that's working little by little. We've spoken about the leave of absence policy. Overall, it's our goal to do an audit of all our admissions and registration processes and policies, and even, communications with students through an EDI lens. And we think that there's always places where we can improve. We've been updating the language in the graduate calendar, also to be more inclusive and more equity focused. It's really an ongoing process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I would just pick on that by saying that when earlier I said this is an ongoing project, so it's not really about challenges, it's just about an ongoing commitment to ensure that we create an inclusive, welcoming, and safe space. Like for all of us here who are involved in the project, and for me personally, as co-chair of the university's EDI and Anti-Oppression Committee, alongside Dr. Sujatha Ross, we are committed to ensuring, like as a university, we are committed to creating that safe space. However, looking at the current environment internationally, there are attacks on EDI policies and so on and so forth. So I don't think we should be shy about promoting EDI policies here as a university, and I don't think we have been shy. Our president, Dr. Jeff Keshen, has repeatedly argued that we as a university have an entrenched commitment and responsibility to creating that inclusive space. So, but as a going back to that idea of work in progress, there are things that we will do. Like, for example, we want to do an audit of our policies. We also want to ensure that on a regular basis we do almost not an environmental scan, but a pulse, a campus pulse, to check how BIPOC students feel about the campus here, for example. Given in FJSR, this is critical because a large component of our graduate students is visible minority. So be they international or BIPOC. So we have to be cognizant of those kind of issues as we move forward together.
Yeah, and one thing that we did recently, there's a research team at UBC that's studying the experiences of Indigenous graduate students, and so they asked me to send out their survey and recruitment letter, and so we are hoping to gain some information in that way about what we can do better to support Indigenous students. But I will say one of the ongoing challenges that we've had around EDI is that of funding. International students until this year have been excluded from Tri-Council funding, and now there is a small allocation for them. And so we created the International Doctoral Student Award, and Aziz has worked very hard on the guaranteed minimum funding for initiative for doctoral students. There's a lot to figure out there, but you know, it gives students a minimum amount that is guaranteed for their 4 years in the program. We've doubled scholarships for Indigenous students. So, you know, if we have the money, if we have the funding, yeah, we're always looking for ways that we can enhance funding for students, but it's definitely, that's an ongoing project as well.
Genuinely, I think we should, all of us who are involved in this work, we should always realize and promote the idea that diversity is a source of strength for the academic community and for society at large. So we should be really not shy. We shouldn't be shy about stating and asserting that simple premise. You can't have a healthy society without being equitable, without ensuring that diversity is supported along the way.
We want to look very broadly at equity, diversity, and inclusion, and to respond to students with diverse identities, whether they be racial, cultural, gender identities, sexual orientation, and so forth. So we, it is ongoing work, and we have to constantly reflect on our own practice. I appreciate the efforts of students to bring things to our attention because we're not always aware of our unconscious biases. Yeah.